everybody. Dr. Rick Wallace here, dropping in on you. I hope that you are having a good start to your day, a great start to your week. Remember, the start is extremely important. How you start your day, how you start your week is going to have an immense impact on how the rest of your day, how the rest of your week goes. Doesn't mean that you can't reset. There are many days that I have to press the reset button. But what you want to do is you want to give yourself the best chance to have a positive, impactful, and productive day, productive week, month, and so on. And so starts are extremely important. So I'm hoping that you started your day today with a heart of gratitude. I hope that you started your week with a mind of anticipation of the great things to come, whether you had evidence of them or not, that believing that if it's been a part of your vision, if you've been able to conceive it, that it's definitely possible. And I want to talk to you about something that's immensely important to me. Out of all of the days that we allocate for different subjects, motivational Sundays, money Mondays, mindful Tuesdays, relationship Wednesdays, business Thursdays, quantum Fridays, and business principles on Saturday. Mindful Tuesdays and quantum Fridays to me are the most important because they both focus on the power of your thinking. We have heard over the course of our lives, whether we believe it or not, that perception is reality, and we're going to talk about some of that today. But before we do, I want to thank everybody that has been purchasing Critical Mass, which is my 20th book, also the first book in a 6-book series. The second book is I Am, the Power of Personal Declaration. What you declare about your life, what you declare about yourself has so much power. We have talked about that. So for those who have been buying this and those who have pre-ordered I Am, definitely thank you. You can still order Critical Mass. It's going to be in print for quite a while. It is, like I said, my 20th book, but it's the first book in the 6-book series on personal development. I Am right now is scheduled to be released on the 14th, I believe, of this month. It has been a journey. I know that we were supposed to get it out some weeks ago. And I'm saying this, look, if y'all could give Dr. Dre 20 years for Detox, I'm asking you to give me a few weeks for this because I want it to be a product I can be proud of. And I want this to be the best book that I've ever written. So I am really combing it. I'm really looking at it. I want it. My first writing teacher taught me that you write to reach and not to prove your vocabulary. While I am always going to, exercise my vocabulary because I think it's important. It's a part of keeping your brain healthy. It's also an easy way to help other people keep their brains healthy. When you challenge people to learn new words, you create new neural pathways, new synaptic connections. And a lot of people will start using the word more than once they learn it. And it literally helps the brain fire more, helps the brain perform. Learning a new vocabulary is extremely important, but at the same time, it's important that when you write, you reach. And so that's what I'm really looking at here is I want to make sure I'm reaching. But you can pre-order the book. The beautiful thing about pre-ordering the book is, yes, you have to wait for it, but you don't have to wait for immediate value. First and foremost, you're going to get the book significantly less than you will be able to get it after it's published. Secondly, you will get a free 30-minute breakthrough session with yours truly, worth $350, absolutely at no charge. So it's worth it. With that being said, I want to go ahead and I want to talk to you. Today's topic, we're talking about mindfulness and understanding the importance of how you think, how you approach life, how you see life, through what lens do you view life, the paradigms that guide your behavior. And this topic is so important that it's in critical mass, and it will also be in I Am. And it's what happens when everything goes wrong. What are you going to do when it seems like everything in your life is not lining up, is working against you? Problems in parenting and your relationship and your finances, on your job or in your business, and your friendships with your homies and your girls aren't working out. What do you do? How are you going to manage that? Because this is what I'm going to tell you. The body keeps a score. Listen to me. The body keeps a score of your traumatic experiences, of your pressures, of your stresses, and it communicates it to the brain, and it becomes a part of your traumatic experience. And what made me actually think of this is we are having a highly emotional last few weeks because a lot of us have been keeping up with the case concerning Malaya Davis, all while seeing consistently on social media and the news a number, I think in the past 6 weeks, 6 babies, and I'm talking babies, killed by their fathers or their mother's boyfriends. And it's an emotional wear. And then we're dealing with the Malaya case. And now we've got this new stressor that everybody's talking about when they see us. I haven't seen it yet. I do plan on watching it from a historical perspective. I've taken my time getting to it. Number one, because I don't have a whole lot of time, but also I want to make sure that I'm not emotionally weighed down when I see it. That's one of the problems and one of the things that happens that makes a lot of people highly subjective to becoming traumatized. And what I mean by that, trauma doesn't automatically traumatize you. I'll give you a prime example of how trauma works. 9/11 was a traumatic day. No matter where you were in the world, people had a feeling about what was happening in New York at Ground Zero. Now, there were people on the scene that were highly engaged in what was going on, witnessing it firsthand, that didn't end up with PTSD. There were people who were watching it on TV in other countries who are still being treated for how they processed it. And one of the primary factors is how they perceived it, the fact that they could do nothing about it. That's huge. When you are able to participate in surviving something or being a contributor to others surviving something, you're less likely to be traumatized by the event, scientifically proven. Another thing is how much more emotional weight and stress were they dealing with at the time. See, let's say you have this line that once you fall below that line, you are now suffering from PTSD. This is the line. And this is you at your height of not dealing with any toxic emotions, vibrating at a 500 or higher, and really taking on life with a positive mindset. Just everything's positive. Even if it's negative, you find a positive in it. This is you up here. But when something bad happens, you lose a loved one, you take a hit and it drops. And then something else happens, it drops. A lot of people are living right here. And so all it takes is something significant or major to happen, and they're now suffering from trauma, and not just being in a traumatic event, but being traumatized. And some people are suffering from complex trauma, just one thing after another, after another, after another, after another. And that's even more intense than just plain PTSD, if it could be such a thing. But how do you manage when everything goes wrong? First of all, you've got to be able to see life through a lens that sees what you can't see with your physical eyes. Your mind has to be fixated. That's one of the reasons I say, wake up every day And the first thing that you have to do is create a heart of gratitude. Create a mindset of gratitude. Find a reason to be grateful. This is what I've learned through experiential observation, through empirical study and research data. This is what I found, that when you create a mindset of gratitude, when you find a reason to be thankful, it's hard to be jealous. It's hard to be envy. It's virtually impossible to be any of those things. It's virtually impossible to start feeling sorry for yourself. It's virtually impossible to find reasons to throw pity parties. Why? Because you're looking in that mindset of gratefulness stands guard at the gate of your perceptual lobe of how you're perceiving what's coming in. See, things are happening to everybody. You ask yourself, what's the difference between this kid that came up in poverty and lack, and this kid? And one kid did exceptional things. The other kid had a life of destruction and incarceration and drug addiction. And it was the perception. One person saw it and said, this isn't my life. It's not my life, lot in life. And we were talking the other day about learned helplessness and Stockholm syndrome and a bunch of other things. And the thing is, in order for you to have Stockholm syndrome, you first have to have learned helplessness. And they were arguing the difference of where certain groups are. And the thing is, you don't become a supporter of the one who is oppressing you until you believe you have no other options. Learned helplessness. See, when you feel you have options, the hope keeps you at odds with what's mistreating you, mishandling you, doing something wrong to you, in bad marriages, in everything else. It's not until you have given up and said, this is my lot in life, it's never going to get any better, that you try to make a good thing out of a bad thing by participating in your demise. Now that happens in marriages, that happens at jobs, that happens in more crisis grounded situations, like literally being kidnapped. It's when you give up. I read a study that, and it's kind of funny the name they gave it, but it was real. I read a study about soldiers in the Korean War that were in prisoner of war camps. And that was this thing they called give up-itis. You know, there would be guys in that camp that would be believing and praying and hoping that they were going to be rescued and discovered, and they were going to be rescued by Allied forces. And after a while, they would get the idea that it's never going to happen. Maybe they were there a year, 2 or 3 years, and then they decided it's never going to happen. And they would literally just sit up and tell people to leave them alone, and they would go lay down on the cot and just sink away. And within a day, they would be dead. You know, so it wasn't because they were starving or it wasn't because of dehydration. They would literally just give up the will to die. Give up the will to live and die. And that's the power of the mind. Most of us don't realize how much of a role our mind plays in how we live. And that we live. I have seen people firsthand, my adopted father, great-grandfather biologically, literally had doctors, specialists that told me before he passed away after a 5-year battle with acute leukemia, they told me he is not going to die until he gets ready to. He literally had that strong of a will that every time they would tell him, okay, we're approaching the end, we give you. And I remember the first prognosis was in 1987. If I'm not mistaken. First prognosis in 1987, they told him he had 2 weeks to live. He didn't die in 1992, but he had about 15 to 18 more of those prognoses over that course. And every time he would say, not yet. And then whatever it was, and my wife and I and a few other people, we've talked about it, and we understand what was going on with him and what he felt he had to accomplish. Part of it was me, and and it was touching a couple of the lives. But he changed lives solely by the fact that he refused to accept the prognosis and changed it. That's the power of the mind. You know, and I didn't fully understand it then, but it definitely caught my attention and it became a part of my work. What is it about the mind that can provide healing? What is it about the mind that can provide a new level of life no matter where you come from? You've got to, first of all, find a place where your mind can operate. A lot of people can't be their best because they're in toxic relationships. Let me draw an analogy for you. A lot of people can't be their best because they're in a toxic relationship, whether it's with a spouse or whether it's with their best friend or whether it's with their parents. And we're going to keep it real. Here's the thing. In the toxic relationship, nothing but negativity, low vibrations, someone constantly reminding you of what's wrong with you. Why are they reminding you with what's wrong with you instead of building you up? Because in reminding you of who you are from a negative perspective, it breaks you down. It keeps you in a place where you're pliable. It keeps you in a place where your tolerance is high. You're willing to accept anything they throw at you because you don't think there's anything better out there for you, because they'll constantly remind you of just how sad of a life you have. And so you sit up and you do the best that you can with it. Now, here's the problem. You're never going to see and feel until you make a decision to extract yourself from toxicity, to detox from all the negativity, and then to make a conscious effort to surround yourself with positive people who are going to not only see the good in you, but hold you to a level of accountability that will make you strive to be even better, and then celebrate you when you do it. That's going to create an entirely new feeling and a new environment, a new atmosphere. And in that atmosphere is where you're going to thrive. Same thing with your thinking. If all you have around you is negativity, if all you focus on is what's wrong, if all you ever hear is the random opinions of negative, minimal-minded people, it's going to have an impact on your world, because your thoughts are the seeds of your destiny. Your thoughts are manifesting your reality. This is not me just talking, and this is what happens. Your reality is the fruit of your beliefs. Now let's go back. Your beliefs, what are your beliefs? Your beliefs are the results of your memories and how you interpret them. Your beliefs about everything. The kids and I and Marion were talking yesterday about a dog, and everybody has an opinion one way or another. But that opinion comes from a belief. Your experiences with dogs. One of the primary beliefs that Marion has is that if you have a dog, your house stinks. And that's because every experience she's had where a person's had dogs, she could smell the dog when you walked in the house. And so that belief governs her whole view of having a dog. Now that's small. That's something that you either do or you don't. But what about a belief about whether or not you're going to be in lack the rest of your life? What about a belief that says, I don't deserve a good mate? What about a belief that says suffering is my lot in life? What if you're entertaining beliefs that are based off of old experiences that have never explored the possibilities of something beyond the box that life initially placed you in? I tell people all the time that you're operating in this confinement, these parameters, this box that you didn't choose. Somebody gave it to you. It may have been mom, it may have been dad, or both parents. It may have been the environment you grew up in where you never saw anybody come out of the hood. You saw the reciprocal or cyclical process of just repetitive generations living in the same house, never getting out, going to prison and everything else. And so you've based your entire life on, this is what I am. No, you were placed in that environment. The environment does not define you until you submit to it, until you acquiesce to it, until you make up in your mind that, hey, this is what it is. then all bets are off. And now it's just whatever life throws at you, you accept. It's a bunch of people waiting on their life to change instead of changing their lives. Why? Because their thinking tells them that the source of their empowerment is outside of themselves. You're looking for the answers everywhere except for where it is. It's always been on the inside. It's always been up to you. There's a divine nature. Whether you access it or not is up to you. You are going to have to understand. I tell people all the time. I was asked in 2012, a time I was literally getting my butt kicked, and in the most emphatic of ways, but people were still looking to me for answers. And I was asked by a prominent pastor, why is it that so many Black Christians live defeated lives? Why is it that we pray incessantly and we still find no peace? We're oppressed, we're manhandled, we're underemployed, we live below the poverty line, and all of these things. Why? And my thing was, we misunderstand faith and we misuse prayer. We think faith is this mystical thing that if we just say it, we confuse faith and the process of faith with wishing and waiting. See, I'm gonna wish for it and then I'm gonna wait for it. And then if I don't get it, I just blame it on God. It's God's will. Or I blame it on the devil. The enemy is at hand. You know, and the truth of the matter is you're wishing for it and not working for it. You haven't established it in your mind. You haven't established it in your heart, the deepest recesses of your soul, your subconscious. You haven't started to believe it at a level that it produces an activity, that produces an energy that works in direct correspondence with the thing that you're desiring. And so the universe starts to conspire with you. See, that's faith. Faith says that I'm going to climb this ladder of energy. I'm going to come out of the pit of frustration and despair and all of these things that rob me of this energy that is so important, because if I can't align with it, I can't have it. And so I told them, I said that they misunderstand faith and they misuse prayer. Well, how do they misuse prayer? That you got a lot of people praying to God to deliver them from the giants that he designed and sent them to slay. You can't win in life like that. You are here for a purpose. You can't circumvent the purpose and live a fulfilled life. When you hide from the purpose, you hide from the power. And you are going to have to understand that. That's something that you are going to have to understand. You are going to have to sit up and understand. I'm not here to hide. I'm not here to find a corner of comfort. I'm here to make an impact. I'm here to live, not survive, live. I'm here to show people what it could be. I have spoken to believers from more than one belief system, religion, whatever you want to call it. And I tell them all the time, you don't evangelize people with your words. You don't evangelize and convert people to your faith or your belief with what you're saying about your version of God. You evangelize people by them experiencing the power of God in your life. If you can't live it, and I don't mean you don't have problems, I mean in the midst, some of my greatest work in getting people to rise in their level of faith didn't come when I had everything that I had and I thought I was the bomb. It came when I was on my back and I had a person who was a person I looked to as a pillar of faith. They were one of the few people who knew what I was going through. And they said, I just have to tell you, when I observe you moving in your challenges, it challenges me to raise my game when it comes to faith. That same person told me when I asked them, with you being a person who knows where I'm at right now, you treat me with a very high level of reverence. You talk to me with respect. and you treat me with that same respect consistently in every sentence you speak. And I said, why is that? And that person told me, because I don't see you where you are, I see who you are becoming and where you're going. And that spoke power just from just one person. But I had many people come to me in a time where I was, like I said, getting my butt kicked. And then some of them, like I said, the few that knew, like, how are you smiling? Because this isn't the end. I refuse to accept this as being my lot. I refuse to accept this as being my final reality. I understand that sometimes I've got to go through things like this to be prepared for what I'm about to accomplish. But it's in the thought processes. I never once stood up and said that, well, this is it. I never took a defeatist mindset. And the thing is, I never ever prayed to God to take me out of it. And people say, what? No. Me and God had a real simple understanding. You know, you got your thing with God, and that's what you better do. You better get your thing with God. Because, see, if all you got is what somebody's told you about God, what all you got is what somebody said you need to remember in what book and what scripture, and that's all you got, and when you repeat it, it don't do anything for you, you start feeling defeated, and you start to buy into the lie that that's God's will for you. You have a purpose here. But see, what happens is you've got to understand God on your level, on your terms. You got to have a connectivity. See, the thing is, when the relationship I had with my great-grandfather, my adopted father, my great-grandfather, was such that I knew he loved me. I knew that when I needed him, he would be there. He had proven it. He had shown me. We had a connectivity. And then I didn't just know that he would. I had no problem when times were difficult coming and leaning into him and saying, you need to give me a little bit of your wisdom. You need to give me a little bit of your strength. You need to give me a little bit of your power, because I'm struggling over here as a new husband. I need you to help me out because you've been doing it. And he would pour into me. I didn't have to question if I went to him, would he deliver? But that's because I knew him. It was a one-on-one thing. It was a foundation of trust. But see, when you've got this thing and you're sitting up and you're looking and you're waiting and you're sitting up, you see, you got to understand. People say, how did you do it? The thing is, I didn't ask God. We had a real simple understanding. I had learned by this point in my life that God builds character in conflict, in trouble, in stress, in difficulty. In other words, God doesn't build character in comfort. And so I had to learn, in order for character to grow, that were going to be challenging times. So when I found myself in this place, 2012, when I found myself in this place, my prayer to God was real simple. Don't let me die in it. Don't let me lose my mind, because I was working with the homeless, which is funny when you know the whole story. I was working with the homeless and I saw mental illness rapid. And I was like, did they lose their mind and become homeless, or did being homeless cause them to lose their mind? And I was trying to understand it. And I said, don't let me die in this, which meant let me live long enough and I know I'm coming out of it. Number two, don't let me lose my mind. I don't want to wake up and don't know who I am. And the other was, if you wake me up, I'll answer the bell. So all I asked him for was, don't let me die, don't let me go crazy. And my promise to him was, I would never let him down. You wake me up, I'm gonna put in the work. Somebody will be able to see something bigger than me in me every day of my life. I kept my end, God kept his end. However, like I said, I'm not telling you what to do or how to do or what to believe. I'm telling you, you better believe. And you better trust so deeply in what you believe that you know that there's an answer for what you believe. There's absolutely no problem you're going to face that there isn't an answer to. And it's there, it's right there. But if you let your circumstances, if you let your situation convince you that there's no answer, you'll never seek it and you'll never find it. You can't wish for it and then just hope it either appears or it doesn't. You got to seek it. Trusting and knowing that it's there. You don't have to strain and struggle for it. You just got to plug into it. That's the power of it. This knowledge, these answers, these solutions aren't saying you got to darn near kill yourself to have them. It's saying find the place. Get on the right frequency. Get on the right vibration. Align yourself with it, and it's waiting on you. You can't talk yourself out of it and expect it. You got to know what it is you want, and you got to align with it, and you got to believe it so hard that it's moving you. It's moving you towards something. Look, I could go on and on and on and talk about this mindset, but you gotta adjust your thinking. You gotta change it. You change your life by changing your thinking, because when you change your thinking, you change your thoughts. Your thoughts are the seeds of your destiny. What thoughts are you planting? Are you sowing thoughts of poverty? Are you sowing thoughts of lack? Are you sowing thoughts of conflict in your relationships? Are you expecting things to unfold or unravel? Or have you decided that no matter what happens in this life, I'm going to win? See, I don't say that there's not going to be any problems. I don't say you're not going to have hardships. I've had plenty. I'm still fighting and pushing through a lot of challenges, but I'm going to win. I'm a winner. It's not where you are that makes you the winner. It's the mindset you have that won't let you give up that will determine. It is not the resources. It is not the courage. It is not. It is the simple thing that says, I'm willing to go the distance. That's going to set you apart from people who don't make it. I am committed to going the distance. I'm believing in my purpose. I'm believing in my design. I'm trusting that there's something better out there for me than what I am experiencing now. One thing I share with people all the time is you've got to become acquainted. You got to become acquainted with your spiritual self. One of the things in my meditations that I repeat every day is that I am pure spirit. I always have been and I always will be. There's inside of me a place of confidence, quietness, and security where all things are known and understood. And it's equated with God. Now, check this out. That's the mindset. That's the mindset. That's the mindset. There's inside of me. There is inside of me. I know that I'm here for a reason. And I've become acquainted with this spiritual self at an immensely powerful level. And I understand that there are no limitations when I'm able to get to this place. But check this out. The spirit tells you the things you can. See, there's a thing called physical sight and spiritual sight. I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about God. And there's a difference. But I'm talking about this thing inside of me, my spirit, that knows the things of God better than I do physically in my brain and in my mind and my own consciousness. There are some things my spirit knows about me that hasn't been revealed to me on a conscious level yet. But check this out. People say, how are you going through what you're going through, Rick, 2012? How are you going through it? And you're smiling. And I tell them, I consulted my spirit, and my spirit disagrees with my circumstances. You better learn how to transcend your moments. You better learn how to transcend your moments. Again, I'm going to say this one more time. I want you to get this. You are spiritual more than you are physical. The spiritual will not die. The energy is going to exist, negative or positive. But check this out. When you become acquainted with your spirit, you're acquainted with God. However you see God, not telling you how to see God, but you're acquainted with God. And your spirit is what's going to consistently reveal new things to you as you evolve. It's going to show you things about yourself. It's going to create the environment for you to know God. And I tell people all the time, if you go back far enough and study religion, everybody knows about the Decalogue, which is the 10 Commandments. Now, the 10 Commandments or the 10 laws are only a fraction of what was given to the Hebrews in laws. We're not here to argue validity and realness, and we're just talking about what we're looking at in the sense of belief systems. And I'm giving you this for a reason. If you go back and you look, these laws were, especially the Decalogue, the 10 Commandments. There were 120 laws on agriculture. There were 120 laws on moral turpitude. There were laws for the priests. There were a bunch of laws. But the Decalogue, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. There's these things, right? You're being told not to do something. But there was a time in the purity of spirit, thousands of years before this point, where people were proclaiming what they knew from their spirit. They hadn't been told not to do it, but they were proclaiming that they weren't. I have not bared false witness against my neighbor. I have not stolen. They're called the 44 admonitions of Ma'at. Thousands of years before that, they're sitting up declaring, why? Closer spiritual relationship. As man moved away from God, that became a need for God to tell man what to do instead of connecting with God and knowing. And so that's what I'm trying to get you to understand. When you understand that your spiritual being is what actually connects to the spirit. See, God is spirit. No matter what religion you believe in, you have to know that God is spirit. That it's not a physical entity in the sense that we see entities with minds. It's so much more, and you'll never ever be able to grasp it totally. And religion has done its best to grasp it and actually have shrunk it, trying to learn it and know it. You can't match it. It's infinite. But anyway, there's this spirit, right? You have it. That's the part that communicates and is also connected to and a part of God. And so when you get into things, it starts to reveal things. The more you trust it, the more it reveals. And what I'm telling you is when I'm in the darkest parts of my time and people are looking at me like I'm crazy, I was told I was in denial. No, I see what you see. I know that in the third dimension, it's real. But there's something in my spirit that won't agree with it, will not accept it. My spirit disagrees with it. And I'm going to walk in what my spirit dictates. Why? Because my spirit is what's communicating with God. You've got to control this. You can't give up your personal sovereignty. With that being said, I'm going to get out of here. Don't forget, if you haven't gotten Critical Mass, book number 20, which is also book number 1 in my 6-book series on personal development, personal performance, get it. If you haven't pre-ordered, I am. Do it. I'm excited about this book. I sit up and read it. I'm going like, man, I wrote that. And I always do that with my books. I go back like, I wrote that. But you know, when I'm in my zone, it's just like speaking. When I'm on a stage, I go into this zone, and then somebody will play it back for me. And I'm like, I said that? That's the spirit. And I'm not, again, this is not some mystical religious type thing. This is me telling you that there are things you know that you don't know. And you've got to tap into that. There are things that are going to affect your beliefs that you need to tap into in your spirit. And your mind is the most powerful force that you have working for you. It's either working for you or it's working against you. That's going to be your choice at the end of the day. With that being said, look, I'm going to get out of here. It's always an honor to speak. I don't care if one person shows up. It's an honor to speak with you. I don't care if nobody shows up. I do the video and I post it anyway. And I know I haven't been consistent lately. That's because I've been working on, I've been working on, I don't know how many of you know, but the wife and I, Marion, are launching the House of Refuge Spiritual Center and Community Outreach September 1st. is the deadline that we've given ourselves to get that done. And that takes a lot in planning infrastructure and writing curriculum and setting down and determining how you're going to minister to people. And we are going to do everything. We're going to have fitness and yoga. We're going to have, service where you're going to be taught. And my goal to teach isn't to emote or to tag at your emotional center. My goal is to empower, to introduce you to God at a level that empowers you to overcome anything you're facing. I'm telling you, I've seen healing that most people haven't seen. I've seen declarations of things that when a person declares it, you're looking at them like you're out of your freaking mind until it becomes. There's so much more that we don't have access to because we've been limited by the very thing that should have released us. And another thing about this connection with God, people talk about, well, you shouldn't do, how do you know what you shouldn't do? When you're connected with God, when you're truly aligned with God, nobody has to tell you you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that. It's when you get in your own head and start outthinking yourself and thinking you can outthink God that you get into stuff you shouldn't be in. When you're truly aligned with your design and your purpose, you know exactly what you should be doing. You know exactly what you shouldn't be doing. Nobody has to tell you. There's a world waiting on people who are truly godly to step into their roles. We are having babies killed, women murdered, mass incarceration, genocide, not just here, all over the world. Humanity is turning in on itself. And not enough people are really truly wanting to live godly. Everybody got a bunch of religious people. But truly living godly is being out in the midst of it, impacting it from the inside. You got to want to be involved to do that. So you can't do that from a platform. So I tell people all the time, I love writing. I've written 21 books so far. I've written thousands of articles. I've spoken on stages in a lot of different places. I've been behind ministers' pulpits in a lot of different places. But the work I do when I sit one-on-one or I'm in a community working hand in hand with that community is far more fulfilling because I'm infecting close range. See, when you're contagious with hope, when you're contagious with faith, when you're contagious with anticipation of great things, when you get close enough to somebody, you infect them. See, it's good to affect somebody. These books affect people's lives. But when I'm one-on-one, I infect. And that contagion will be passed on to people I'll never meet. That's when you're fulfilling. And I'm just scratching the surface of what's possible for me. And this is the beautiful thing of it all. I'm not different than you. I may be doing something differently, but you have the same potential to have impact in this world. Matter of fact, you were designed to do so in your own way. That's my challenge to you. Live life on full so that you down in, that you can sit up and say, I came and I gave it everything I had. I didn't fold. I didn't retreat. I didn't surrender. I came, I saw, and I conquered. Be blessed. I'm out.